Hey guys, it's Will, your favorite rural campaign and elections expert, and let's talk about Trump putting the screws already to agriculture. I mentioned in an earlier video that we spent last Saturday moving equipment from one farm to another. These farms are about 90 miles apart. We have several pieces of equipment that we had to move, so I got a lot of time in my truck listening to my favorite national ag radio program, and boy did I get an earful. Now, the pundits that I listened to, which are nationally well known, were just absolutely dumbfounded at the decisions that Donald Trump had made so far regarding his cabinet level agriculture positions. Now, they, of course, were very politically correct about making these statements because God knows no national ag correspondent wants to go on to record criticizing the future president of the United States. They were very critical of his decision to place RFK Jr. in charge of the food production in this country. And secondly, they didn't much like his new choice for Ag Secretary either. Now, I'll be right up front with you. I'm not going to spend the next 4 years of this Trump administration telling everybody I told you so every time it happens. But here, in this first video, now that I've listened to them complain about Trump's selections for these ag positions, I'm going to say, what in the hell did you expect? And we told you so. And now you're going to rely on all the people in farming and ranching that voted against Trump and Democratic voters in blue cities to help you fight against these draconian changes that Donald Trump wants to make. And we're going to step up to the plate and do that because of the benefits to our food system and the benefits to feeding the world and the lower price of food that's going to come as a result of that. But how unfair is it of you to make the wrong decisions in regard to ag leadership and then expect the rest of us to make up for your mistakes? Let's talk a little bit about it. Now, there are two things I want to do here in the beginning, and one is to remind everybody that American agriculture produces $1.6 trillion in goods for the American economy every year. It's a critical part of the U.S. economy and employs hundreds of thousands of workers across the country, not to mention the multiple thousands of small farms and small farm families that it employs as well. The second thing I want to give you is a little bit of a breakdown on how row crop farmers maximize their yield potential, because it's critical in understanding why RFK being put in at Health and Human Services could be devastating to American ag. In order to get their yield potentials where they need to be, farmers do a lot of things. First, they plant at optimal times to make sure soil conditions are right, that the rains and the soil warmth in the soil are going to come at the right time with the right amount of sunshine. They practice crop rotation. They know their yield potentials in advance and what they need to shoot for. They scout their fields. What kind of pests typically show up here? What kind of weeds can I expect? Funguses, etc. They utilize fertilizer, they utilize weed control, they utilize fungus control. There are quite a few things that they do, but many of these different areas would be impacted very negatively by RFK Jr. being placed at Health and Human Services. One of the biggest issues that farmers would have with RFK is that he opposes any kind of modified seed usage at all, even though there have been thousands of studies that have shown that modified seed usage isn't harmful to the American consumer. Secondly, he wants 100% organic-based agriculture. That means no fertilizers, no weed control, no pest control, no fungus control, and even reductions in the amount of irrigation can be used. In that simple swipe of the pen alone, he's going to eliminate 5 of the top methods that farmers use to maximize crop production in this country. And just to give you an idea of where we stand around the world in regard to food scarcity, there are several hundred million people in the world, almost 300 million right now, that are victims of food scarcity because we're still not raising enough food to feed the world. Right now, well, maybe a little above this, we basically produce around 181 bushels, just use corn as an example, 181 bushels of corn per acre. Before we started using these methods that RFK wants to ban, our corn production stood at 33.1 bushels per acre. So just imagine the impacts on worldwide food scarcity if we were to drop just corn production from 181 bushels per acre all the way down to 33.1 bushels per acre. The bottom line is people would starve. In addition to that, you would have hundreds of thousands of family farms that would go out of business. And who would be waiting in the wings to swoop them up? Big business. there would be super huge agricultural businesses out there, along with Wall Street, willing to come in and buy up these family farms so that they can pool them all together in one mass conglomerate to produce food for the United States and the rest of the world by pushing the small family farmer out. I'm not going to lie to you. The appointment of RFK at HHS would be utterly devastating, not only to the ag industry, but to the ag way of life. And for those of you that voted for Donald Trump thinking, oh, he never does what he says he's going to do, he means it this time. And he's putting people in positions of leadership that prove that he's going to do what he said he was going to do. And listen, farmers and ranchers, don't buy into this idea that Brooke Rollins, who Trump has selected to be his ag secretary, is going to stand in the way of what RFK wants to do. You know, I get really tired of hearing about people that grew up on a farm automatically being advocates for big ag or for ag in general. It's just not the case. Yes, she grew up on a farm, and yes, she did go to Texas A&M. But the truth is, she served in Trump's America First Policy Institute, and she's a yes woman for Trump. She's going to do whatever Trump wants to do. How do I know this? Because she used to talk about stopping the foreign ownership of farmland here in the United States, and she's quit doing that since she came into the Trump orbit. These folks are going to do what Trump wants them to do. She's not going to stand in the way of RFK. You can put that little myth to rest right now. So the bottom line, farmers and ranchers, is that it's time to get on your horse and ride right now. We've got to stop the nomination of RFK at HHS. And the way we're going to do that is to get organized through organizations that already stand up for us and through new organizations that are going to step up for us in the future. The other thing that our big, large farm defenders need to learn to do is to work together with Democratic organizations and Democratic politicians, because they're the ones that are going to stand up for doing the right thing in regard to ag production and to stopping these changes that Trump wants to put in place that are going to devastate the small family farm. The bottom line is this is just the beginning of the assault on agriculture, because Trump's going to put people in place that don't know a damn thing about agriculture, that live in some dream world in regard to how crops are raised and how we're supposed to feed the rest of the world. Stay tuned here as we talk more and more about this and develop ways that we can fight back against this attack on American agriculture and the small family farm way of life.